My name is Mai Vang, and I'm a candidate running for Sacramento City Council District 8.
Wonderful. Awesome. So exciting. Well, congratulations to even getting to this point. I know this is a huge, huge deal. So this is very exciting. A lot going on right now.
Yeah, no, there is, Lena. And, in the middle of a global pandemic, racial uprising, like I was sharing with you earlier, there is a lot going on with our families and our communities. The one word that I use to describe what's going on is unbearable. And so more now than ever, we need bold and courageous leadership at City Hall, fighting for working families, our young people, our elders. And, that's what I tend to do when I get to City Hall.
And for background, can you give us a little bit of your background? I was reading a little bit, and I found you're a professor at a couple of our local universities here.
Yeah. So I
do.
teach at Sac State and UC Davis, but my full-time job is I'm an executive director for the Buck Scholar Association. We are an organization that provides mentorship and scholarship for low-income high school students. So I am an executive director, but on the side, I also teach at Davis and also Sac State as well. So
what's the name again of that scholarship association?
Buck Scholars Association.
Buck Scholars Association. Perfect.
Yep, I'm an executive director for that organization. Yeah.
Okay. How long?
Go ahead. About 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years now. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's so amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in South Sacramento. I'm a proud daughter of Hmong refugees, and I'm also the eldest of 16 children in my family. So I have 9 brothers and 6 sisters. So you can imagine at a really young age, I learned the importance of stepping up to take care of family and community. And then growing up in poverty, I saw firsthand how access to wealth really determines folks' health outcomes, right? And their quality of life. And I saw each day mom and dad, my uncles and my aunties striving to get by. And I am running for Sacramento City Council for them, for our families and our communities, and really to continue my life's work to ensure that, our families and our neighborhoods get the resources they need, because oftentimes neighborhoods like Meadowview, Detroit, Valley High area are often left behind. I grew up here in South Sacramento, born and raised. I love this community deeply. It is time that we have bold and courageous leadership. And that is what I will do when I get to City Hall.
So I have to circle back to this. You're the oldest of 16 kids?
I am. I'm the oldest of 16. And it's crazy because when I think about my 2 earliest childhood memories, one is, dancing in a small apartment complex, with my 2 little sisters. And the other earliest childhood memory is walking to the refrigerator to grab a bottle of milk for my mother. So as soon as I could walk, I've been helping to raise my brothers and sisters. And that's all I've always known my whole life. In the 3rd grade, I remember, they asked all the students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my answer was, I want to be like mom and dad. I want to take care of my family. So it's so crazy because when I look back on it now, am I doing what I wanted to do in 3rd grade? And absolutely, that's what public service is about. That is what being an advocate is about, taking care of family and community and neighborhoods. That's what I've known my whole life, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Awesome. Okay. And how do you think I'm sure it goes without saying, but how do you think being the oldest of literally 16 kids has set you up to become a leader in your adult life?
Yeah, I think when you also have we have 15 siblings, there are 15 personality, right? And you think about having to find common ground, consensus, moving on things for the family to agree with. That's the same thing, also being a public servant, right? Listening to everyone's perspective and finding common ground, and making sure, that if the little sibling is getting picked on, that you stand up for them, right? So I think, negotiation. I think, finding common ground. I also think teamwork. I think what I learned growing up as the oldest 16 is that there's no one that ever does anything alone. If there's ever a family project or we're cooking food and there's a big pot outside we have to cook, everyone has a role to play. And that's the same values that I bring to my campaign team too. We have elders who don't speak English that, say, how can I get involved? And, pre-COVID, right? Because right now we want to make sure we adhere to public health safety orders. I have aunties and elders who couldn't speak English, but they were outside cooking, right? Or they were folding letters for voters. There's a role for everyone in a campaign, in a community. And I think that's what I learned growing up as the oldest of 16, hard work, teamwork, the idea of collectivism, that no one ever does things alone. I am who I am today because I have an amazing family and community and neighborhood that raised me. And I think that is what that is what I bring to City Hall as well.
So now that we have a little bit of your background, tell me why you want this position on City Council.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. Look, I am running for Sacramento City Council really to continue my life's work as a community organizer, as an advocate, on the Sacramento City School Board. I fought hard for resources for our families in our neighborhoods. And I am running for Sacramento City Council to make sure that we continue to improve the quality of life for folks who live in District 8. I'm running to serve this incredibly diverse community that I love deeply. This is the community that provided me the tools to lead. This is the community that inspires me every day to fight harder. And I'm a true believer that no matter your race, your ethnicity, your gender, your age, your mobility, right? No matter your identity, that everyone should have access to good jobs, affordable housing, clean and safe neighborhoods. And these are the things that our families, our communities, that we want in District 8. But I also believe that you also need bold and courageous leadership at City Hall, fighting for you, fighting for our families. As a community organizer, I know best, right? Even if you're a public servant, I also know that it takes organizing one-on-one to push an agenda for our families and our communities. I have a broad coalition of support across, from labor, from business, from our elders, our young people, diverse coalition. And that is what I plan to do when I get to City Hall. I also want to share that this campaign has never really been about me because we are actually, even my mailers, we are educating voters about key issues and proposition that will impact them, like Prop 16. I have one mailer that's just educating our voters about Prop 16. I am sending a letter to every household that speaks Spanish in the district, right? The Latino community makes up 30% of our district. And it's so important to make sure that the Latino community turns out to vote, our immigrant community. We are doing hardcore outreach, right? That this campaign is not just about Mai, but it's about turning out the vote and showing up, because there's so much at stake this November, not just at the federal level, but also the local level. So it's going to be really important. It is a matter of life and death. And voting is so important, to civic life and to our families and communities. So I always say this, win or lose, Lena, I am still going to be here in South Sacramento in Meadowview. I was born and raised here. I've been doing the work. I'm not going anywhere. And no matter who wins, I'm going to be behind that person to make sure that they're successful, because that's what we need. We need bold, courageous leadership, and we have to make sure that they succeed. But I think my one message is to make sure we show up and that we vote. That is so important. Telling, for example, like encouraging the Hmong community to turn out and to vote. I'll tell them, make sure that they get their ballot and that they bomba, right? To make sure they vote. It is so important this year. And so, yeah, I think the other thing is, we haven't been canvassing because of COVID. And so what we're also doing is, we're texting, we're phone banking, we're utilizing social media, we're sending letters, we're postcard writing. So, right, we have folks who can't be around each other. So we send them postcards, and they're writing postcards to voters. We're being innovative and doing the best that we can to get our message out to voters. It is a little tough because I love canvassing. I love the in-person one-on-one, but we got to make sure that everyone is safe. And so we'll do what we can to get to the finish line. And we have about 24 days left to go. So it's our hashtag is heart and hustle. So it's heart and hustle to the finish line.
I love that. Hashtag heart and hustle. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, heart and hustle is our campaign hashtag.
I love it. Okay, perfect. And I was reading online from just the city's website. You had said you're running to make sure that everyone is treated fairly if you were to be elected. And I know you kind of touched on that by making sure everybody has fair housing and clean and safe neighborhoods. Is that what you meant by that? Or do you want to elaborate a little bit more on why you want to make sure everyone is treated fairly?
Absolutely, absolutely. As COVID-19 and the racial inequities continue to impact our city, I know that our most vulnerable communities are really bearing the brunt of the devastating effect, right, Lena? And actually now more than ever, we actually need leaders who have the education and training in public health to address the challenges in the community. I've been saying this to voters, I've been saying this to community members, is that, at the core of the recovery, we got to make sure that we center resources on families and communities hardest hit, right? And oftentimes these are low income, Black, Brown, Indigenous communities of color. And we got to make sure that we uplift these communities in order for Sacramento to thrive. These communities, our neighborhoods also need to thrive as well. And so you can definitely count on me to be fighting for our families and our communities, especially those that are often left behind. I also think I don't think anyone would have imagined last fall that we would now be in the middle of a global pandemic, right? And I want to share that, we know that COVID doesn't discriminate, but we know that our system does, right? Pre-COVID, inequities already existed. And now with COVID, with more racial injustice, we're seeing even more disparities, right? Even the basic needs are so critical. As a school board member, the first thing that happened when COVID hit is ensuring, we got to get Wi-Fi connection for our students. You can give them a Chromebook, but if they don't have access to Wi-Fi, how can you engage in distant learning? And then it's not just that, but it's also our schools, our central hubs, safe havens. Oftentimes it is the only place where they go to get meals. And so I'm proud to say, Sac City has provided over 3 million meals to our families, provided over 28,000 laptops. And so we know that COVID and the racial injustice we are seeing is harmful for our students and our families. The social emotional health of our students is critical. So for me, I do take a public health approach. I went to UCLA to got my master's in public health and Asian American studies, and everything I do, I think about how do we create the type of conditions to make our families continue to thrive, right? And sometimes it's the basic necessities that we need, right? And so that is a top priority of mine. Is COVID recovery as well, because it definitely has put us back. But like I said, pre-COVID, our communities were already struggling, and COVID has only, exacerbated the outcomes, the racial inequities. And so that's got to be laser focused, and that's what I tend to do when I'm councilwoman.
What would I'm sure you've been following some of the bigger issues that our current city council has had to vote on, things along those lines, and some of the decisions they've made. So if you are elected, what would you like to see change on city council?
Yeah, I think a really big thing when we talk about equity and fighting for neighborhoods that have been left behind is really budgeting from an equity lens, right? That those that are closest to the pain, to the struggle, get the bulk of resources. And there is this movement on the ground of young folks, of folks actually all ages, pushing, to hold the council more accountable in terms of how they spend their dollars. And there is this project called the People's Budget, right? And so, I'm really excited about the grassroots organization and the organizing behind that. So I think budgeting from an equity lens is absolutely important, right? Like our budget reflects our core values. The other thing I would also say is that I know that there is this big push. Again, this campaign is never about Mai, so I'm going to talk about a ballot measure. Measure A. I am voting no on A because I don't believe that centralized power is good for our communities and our neighborhoods. We are in a point of time where we're going to have probably the most progressive, most diverse city council, and it's important that neighborhoods, their voices aren't diluted. And so while I'm also campaigning for city council, I'm also campaigning on issues, things that I care about right now, that I'm vocal about, that some folks have said to me, Mai, stay out of that, stay out of it, don't talk about C, don't talk about A, you need to focus on your campaign. But this campaign, again, is not about Mai, it's about talking about the issues that impact everyday people, and I will continue to do that. And so just a plug, I am a no on A, and I hope that all of y'all out there watching and listening will also vote no on A as well.
And I think we are almost just about out of time, so I just want to give you the final word. Any last things that you would like to say to the voters, anything else that you want to add that you think we may have missed that is very important to you and to your campaign?
Yeah, so again, I just want to say thank you, Lena, for giving me the opportunity to come on here on ABC just to share my story, my vision, and our community campaign. Again, I just want to share that, this campaign has never been about just Mai Vang. It's been a vehicle to educate voters about the important issues that matters to our city. I want to say to each and every one of you, win or lose, I'm going to be fighting alongside you for our families, for our better Sacramento. And I urge you, to vote this year. There's so much at stake at the national level and at the local level. And it's incredibly important for our families, for our neighborhoods, for our community to show up and to vote. And so make sure you do that. We have 24 days left to go. And it's and our hashtag is Hard and Hustle. So it's Hard and Hustle to the finish line. I'll see y'all on November 3rd. Maybe you'll also get phone calls from me as well, and from our team. And so the last thing I want to say is that I hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy. Make sure y'all are washing your hands. If you're out, make sure you wear a mask. And if you're close to people, make sure you're at least 6 feet away. I know that there's a campaign with the Department of Public Health as well right now that we want to turn orange by Halloween. So let's work hard. Let's make sure we, let's make sure we do everything we can to protect our loved ones and get to orange by Halloween as well. So thank you so much. This has been really awesome. Thank you for the opportunity.